Hey, I'm Fred.
And I'm Ant.
And this is Creator Generation.
Frederico, why have we created this podcast?
Well, we work with creators all around the world and partner with companies like Google and YouTube, not just to make their channels better, but to basically make them better creative entrepreneurs. A lot of people think creators are like content factories. We don't think that's the case. There is so much more to being a creator.
On Creator Generation, we take you inside the minds of the world's top video creators and experts to share their tips and stories from working on the world's biggest video platform. All right, Fred, what is happening this week?
This week we're chatting to Dolan from Planet Dolan.
We're going to give you 1,000,000 times your revenue. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and Dolan has a pretty big channel, well over 7.5 million subscribers across actually a bunch of channels.
Indeed. Very big subscribership. He originally started in gaming and now does listicles and edutainment. Some really big and interesting questions are answered, like why are cats afraid of cucumbers? Or is a turtle without a shell homeless or naked?
Definitely naked.
I'd say homeless.
Anyway, we talked to Dolan about what it's like being a solo creator and then growing to employ up to 30 people on your YouTube channels. And Dolan is a wealth of YouTube knowledge, so we quiz him on his top tips to help emerging creators grow and succeed on YouTube.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Dolan, welcome to Creator Generation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Mate, can you start off by just telling us, well, a bit who you are and about your YouTube channels?
Okay, so I'm an Australian, and I like to create videos about like animations and countdowns and that kind of thing. Mostly like edutainment, so like facts, and we throw in a bit of humor and that kind of thing. And yeah, we've been doing this for like 5 years or so. Started off with just me, and then we grew into a bit of a company of about 30 people or so. It's a bit international, but there are quite a few people from Australia that are also working on it. Yeah, just having a bit of fun and just making tons of content. We got about 2 or 3 channels that we produce stuff on pretty frequently.
And those what are those channels?
So you got Planet Dolan, and that one has a lot of like true stories. So things like what happened to someone, like if they cheated on a test at school, like a weird method they use. Like some people use, like they cheat on tests by looking at their feet. They got the answers written on their feet. Or one guy trained a homing pigeon to come to his window, settle there, and actually like have the answers like written on his leg, which is pretty elaborate and unnecessary. And so the other channel is Super Planet Dolan. That's our animation channel. So maybe once every few weeks or once a month, we'll do edutainment. So we'll take questions from the audience, and then we'll add a bit of humor, like a humorous answer, where we like make up like just something funny, but then we'll have a real answer after that. We have like a giant cast of characters, voice actors that we've met for ages.
Awesome. Where did it start though? Team of 30, multiple channels. I don't know how many million subscribers. Many.
Yeah, on our Planet Dolan channel we've got about 4 million. On our animation channel we've got about 1.8 million, something like that. We have a couple of other channels. One of them has like a million, and one of them has like 800,000 or something. But those are like experiment channels. Sometimes we just like, we'll try doing like movie countdowns, or we'll try doing like gaming stuff. And so it's just for fun.
There's a bunch of creators who are like hating on you probably right now. Like, oh, you have an experiment channel that has maybe, I don't know, maybe 1 million subscribers.
Yeah, something like that. And, the channels are for sale if they want them. We're not really doing anything with them. So...
There's a few more people hate you now. But how did it all start? Like what like, it's got to start from zero, right? So what was the start for you? What was the Dolan start?
So I've like at the very start started doing gaming stuff. So I got interested in doing World of Warcraft boss guides. So I just figured that some short guides for fighting the bosses would be fun. And so I started making those, and then after a while I was like, I'm bored, I'm going to do other stuff as well. So I just started doing like general gaming videos, and then I came across countdowns after a while, which were just like just educational lists, just interesting facts. And so I was like, well, I'll try doing that with gaming as well. And after a while I got bored of that, so I was like, I'll start doing just general countdowns because that looks fun too. So I made a whole new channel for that one, and once that exploded in popularity, like over a very short period of time, maybe a month, that's when we could start hiring more people to help out with like editing or writing. And from there, it's just, I think it's my love of animation and cartoons that prompted me to next start doing just animations on a separate channel too. But yeah, at the start, it was just me in my bedroom, and I was just trying to just come up with any video idea I could. I'm just like, it's all experimenting. It's just for fun. And so you just do lots of research. You're like, what's already on YouTube? What could you add to the big pile of videos? You just have a bit of fun, and then you find out what your niche is really.
And I mean, a lot of creators do say that, not many go in there with any real strategy or saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be like that. And I think that's all part of the YouTube journey. It's discovering what works for you. Did that take a long time for you?
Yeah, it did at the very start. So, I mean, I had all kinds of throwaway channels back in 2012, which is when I started. And I would just try all kinds of I was interested in writing. So I did some writing videos on how to write novels and short stories and stuff. And then from there, I kept pivoting just general areas. Like I'm interested in gaming as well. I'm interested in like talking about movies. Yeah, it did take a while to find my feet, and I think anyone can attest to that. To find your voice, you start YouTube, you start really professionally. It's like, hello everyone, I'm here to teach you about this thing, or I'm here to have fun, and you will have fun too. And then after a while, I used to have a really professional voice in videos, and now I'm just slurring all the time. Like, hey, we're gonna talk about the thing, and you're gonna have tons of fun.
Is that because you're drunk half the time while you're creating YouTube content?
Well, I don't want to give away my secrets or anything, but it's just you kind of relax after a while, and then after you've found your niche and your interests, you just start making lots of that kind of stuff, and you keep exploring no matter what content creator you're talking about. They've all pivoted, they've all tried new things, and it's worked for them.
So before you ended up like at this countdown channel stage that sort of blew up pretty quickly, what sort of timeline are you talking from Warcraft to gaming and then more general sort of thing? What sort of timeline?
I think it was about a year and a half before I got anywhere. And when I first started, you just had to post your stuff everywhere. So I'm sure the Warcraft community got real sick of me posting in every forum thread I could find and messaging all these channel operators. I'm like, I made this video about this thing. Do you want to post it? They're like, no. I'm like, I'm gonna keep trying. Gonna make more videos. And you just post it everywhere just to get any kind of attention you can, because everyone starts from zero. And then after a while, once it starts to snowball and people get used to you, then you can start experimenting with things, and you already have a built-in audience. So yeah, it's a long process, but I mean, it might be different these days because it's 2019. We're way in the future now, and I'm sure there are different methods. But that's what worked for me. Just a big grind and having faith in yourself, and just keep producing stuff that you have fun with.
Yeah, cool. Was it a hobby to start with? Like when why did you start making Warcraft videos?
Because I had nothing else to do. Yeah, I was just playing WoW all the time. I'd be rewatching Dragon Ball Z all the time. I'd be writing my short stories. I'm like, I'm so bored. Oh my god. So I was doing a writing course at the time, and so I had a bit of spare time. Like especially at the end of the school year, you have like a few months before you start again, and so it was like I can continue to be unproductive and watch movies and stuff, or I can try this cool thing that I'm already watching every day anyway. And that's how it started. I knew that there are other content creators who could make a living off there. So that was the incentive to keep pushing past the point where you want to give up anyway. You can like turn it into something where it'll help fund itself, and you don't have to find an additional job to fund what you're doing. It could fund itself.
So did you have that work mindset when you first started? Like, were you like, I'm going to work at this, or I'm just like, the same as you sitting there in your bedroom watching Dragon Ball Z or playing Warcraft? You're like, oh man, it's just something else to do when I feel like it. I'm just going to make something. Yeah,
I definitely committed to it early on. And I think that any new enterprise that you go for, especially if you're working for yourself, you have to be tenacious in what you do, and you have to keep making stuff. And it's very important that you have faith in what yourself, because it's really easy to make a video one day and the next day be like, that was the worst garbage. No one should ever watch this. They're gonna bury this somewhere deep, dark. But instead, you just gotta keep making stuff, improve as you go. It's like learning an instrument. No one starts off really, really good. You might have a little bit of talent, but everyone works on it until you get to the point where you're making good stuff. So yeah, it was. I definitely approached it like I should make a video at least like twice a week or something like that. Try and put all my effort into it wherever I can. Do research to see what other people are doing and see if I can learn from them too.
In 2012, that path wouldn't have been that clear either, right? So like, was there anyone you followed or looked up to or resources that were available that you?
Yeah, well, I guess when I first started, I watched a lot of World of Warcraft YouTubers, and so they would have a small community of their own. And so they would all be talking about this kind of stuff. Like, I think AdSense was even a new thing back then. Before that, everyone was just signing up to networks, dodgy networks like Machinima, and trying to make a living through that. And there was I don't think Patreon was a thing back then, or at least it wasn't anywhere near as big. So yeah, it was a bit of a different time.
You talked about dodgy networks. It's an interesting thing because a lot of MCNs are falling over at the moment, and it's it's a new landscape, new horizon for a lot of creators, and the way everything is pretty much changing up at the moment. So, one, were you ever approached by any of the MCNs, and did you join? And then two, what do you think the future is going to be for creators now that the MCNs are going?
Yeah, like every day, I think. I got emails from these random ones, and they're just like, we're going to give you 1 million times your revenue. I'm like, okay. Sounds like a bold-faced lie, but so usually with these things, I try them at least once. So specifically for the gaming channel, once my Countdown channel got established, I thought what a good idea might be to license that channel to a network and just see how it goes, because I've never tried it before. And I licensed it to Curse, and Curse primarily they started out, I think, with World of Warcraft, and they expanded to other games. And so I actually don't regret joining them because they were really communicative. That word, that difficult word. And they
say it again.
No. And so they would help you out whenever you had trouble with monetization or copyright or even just licensing stuff. But yeah, these days, definitely not as necessary now that YouTube got their own system set up. In terms of the future of, I guess, creators, I think given the instability of YouTube at times, I always encourage people to diversify wherever you can. So whether that means moving your content to other platforms in addition, I mean, Twitch is quite a big thing now, so people usually diversify onto there. And have like a dual business thing going on. So we manage to diversify by doing merchandise. We do regular sponsorships on our animation channel as well. We have a mobile game that is called Dolan, and we released that, I think, last year. We also do Patreon as well, just for the fans that want to help out. We also have a book that's in stores. So we try to get everywhere we can just to keep things stable, help out the people that are working with us so that tomorrow that it's not just like, oh, that's it, bye. So,
I mean, you talk about all these extra things to do, other revenue opportunities. When did you start thinking about that as part of your journey?
2017 March, the Adpocalypse.
Really?
That's when the journey began. Yeah, that's when I was actually on our honeymoon. So I just got married, and so we went to Fiji. And the Adpocalypse happened at the tail end of that. So I was watching our channel numbers and revenue just like go down the toilet. And so on the flight back, it was just we were thinking about other ways that we could diversify our revenue. And so I guess most of 2017 and 18 was about finding different methods of doing that, which we did in numerous ways. I guess we did merchandise before that point, but that was when we really hunkered down and made sure that our business could thrive in other areas.
So before that, your majority of your revenue was ad revenue from YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that you make a little bit on the side, but it's just nowhere near as much as what you get from ad revenue, because that's a reliable amount in a month based on your view count. And if your view count's stable, then you can rely on it as like in terms of your business. But things like donations are like a one-time thing.
And who helped you set all that up? Like, there's a lot of knowledge needed there.
Me, yeah.
Bit of trial and error?
Yeah, I mean, I can give examples of a few of those because I think those might be more helpful than me just being like, people should try doing this and that. Penn Macmillan, the book publisher, they reached out to us, and so they just said we were thinking about doing a book based on your countdown scripts that you got, and so we met up with them. That was a pretty straightforward process dealing with those guys. So in that case, they came to us. The game that we published was networking with a friend of ours that they basically specialize in helping you connect with other people who are interested in like making games or making cartoons or making movies, that kind of thing. And so that was a simple process of figuring out like what our brand strength is versus what they can output, and then helping each other. So that was a major bit of networking. But other things like Patreon, I mean, everyone knows Patreon. Merchandise, our same friend hooked us up with Hanabi, and Hanabi do a lot of merchandise for Rooster Teeth and a few others. But before that, we did, I think it was Teespring or something like that. So I mean, that was just as good, but at least this way we can get our merchandise into conventions and stuff. And a lot of these opportunities just came because we had already built up an audience. If you're just starting out, it's really hard to make connections like that. And so once you start to snowball a bit, then you can start to approach these companies or people that specialize in networking, and be able to connect with others who, you can have a mutually beneficial arrangement, that kind of thing.
Now, you talked about, obviously, you diversifying 2017. That's quite a bit after you started.
Yep.
For newer YouTubers or emerging YouTubers who want to be serious long term, do you recommend they start earlier thinking about those kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially these days. But I think most people are quite savvy, and there are way more opportunities for diversification these days because, I mean, after the Adpocalypse, I think a lot of creators started looking into that and spreading their information in videos anyway. But I mean, if you're just starting out, it's probably just you or a small team. And so at that point, you just got to focus on having, I think it's more important to spend a lot of time being productive and focusing on the quality of what you're making, because that's going to dictate how your success is going to go later on. The funding is mainly just like if you want to build or if you got ideas for other series and that kind of thing. But I guess everyone's got a different situation, and so they might need upfront funding in order to be able to commit to maybe a year or two of research and development.
Here's something. Now, one thing we talk to a lot of creators about is diversifying revenue and making sure you are set up in the long term. And Adpocalypse was a big wake up call for a lot of people. Do you think Adpocalypse was probably one of the best things to happen to creators because it made them think about all these extra things?
In hindsight, sure.
A brutal lesson for some.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it definitely helped out, and I think YouTube kind of needed a shake-up regardless to help people evolve off the platform, especially if they're stuck in the repetitive nature of making videos on a like once a week or twice a week or God forbid a daily or twice a day.
Twice a day.
It happens. And I think having any kind of way to keep moving forward and making new products is pretty important. So, yes and no.
Yeah, it was a horrendous time for a lot of creators. A lot of the super big YouTubers said they weren't affected because they'd already diversified a lot, and a lot of creators then started doing more activities afterwards. So it was an interesting lesson. I think, like I said, a hard lesson, but an interesting time. And you did talk about the instability of YouTube. And I mean, you jump on Reddit and you see everyone going nuts about the algorithm here or this here, and people just not understanding what's happening. How much is there actual YouTube instability? How much is people's misunderstanding of the platform?
Sure. No, there's definitely, I think it's more just YouTube keeps evolving and changing direction. And so it's hard to keep up. But I think that not just YouTube, but any kind of business, online business or real life, it's you have to be able to adapt with the times and how things keep moving. Like that's obviously the channels that are going to survive and the people that are going to survive, the businesses survive, are the ones that can adapt really well.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, it's easy to complain about like something that YouTube did, but I think the more productive thing is to figure out what they have changed and how you can adapt with it. And if there is something that maybe you think is just unjust and unfair, you can always make a post about it and get attention for it and try and rally a bit of support for change. But I find that, I like to keep to myself a lot on the internet. And so stuff like this, I never make public posts being like, this sucks, this is awful, this is horrible for me and everyone. No, instead, I'm just going to figure out what's changed and I'm going to try and adapt to it.
And look, that's a great point. And a lot of the more sophisticated YouTubers, they do adapt because they've learned to do that. A lot of the younger ones are like, what the hell is happening? And they're the ones who lose their mind. It is an interesting time because you're right, they do have to adapt. I mean, there are big tech companies, there are a lot of other big tech companies, there are a lot of weird things happening in the world, and they adapt to that. I mean, they just recently, and depending on when you listen to this podcast, they've changed the way they're displaying subcounts now, right? So if you're under 1,000, it's still the exact number, but over that it's like 1.1, 1.2, and so forth.
Yeah, I saw that post today. Someone was like, what's the point?
Yeah, and I think it was probably in regards to what happened with people doing the live tracks. You know, there's the makeup ones, PewDiePie, all those sort of things. And I think that's just to make not such a big deal of that. But that will no doubt, you know, get people riled up for various reasons.
Like Instagram's looking at getting rid of showing how many likes a post has publicly. Like they're toying with that. You know, like all these platforms are continuously changing how they work and how they display interactions and content.
I'd love to see them just like post the reasoning for it, like post data and be like, this is why we're doing it, instead of just being like, we're going to change this and you guys are going to like it, you're going to adapt. I think the same thing with YouTube, like the sub count. Like if they just came out and they were just like, here's a just objectively decent reason why we're doing this, everyone would be like, oh, okay. Instead they're just like, we're going to change it. And everyone's like, all right.
I mean,
they can.
They have tried, and one of the things, you know, even the CEO said that they're trying to be more transparent with what they do, and given what it was, you know, prior to Adpocalypse, I guess they're definitely a lot more transparent now. And you know, having worked with YouTube, we do see them reach out quite a lot and try and create those connections. But it is hard being such a big platform and so many creators on the platform. And you know, they've tried things like Creator Insider and stuff like that, which it's a good step. What do you think they still need to do, though?
Oh yeah, they're doing much better these days for sure. It's actually nice to just hear that there is a voice behind YouTube. Even at VidCon, when you be able to talk to the engineers, it's just quite humbling to talk to the people that are just in charge of the algorithm and everything.
And they're actually really open, nice, easy people to talk to. People think they're like, you know, they're in a cave and they're all cagey and they're not going to say anything, but they're actually they can be some really great people there.
Yeah, it is nice to hear reasoning for simple changes that they make, and I think that's really all people can ask for sometimes. Although it is just hilarious sometimes seeing the changes that YouTube make, and you're just baffled. But it's you just find it funny because it's just like such a simple change that has rippling effects, and there are so many people on the platform. It's interesting that they just changed like the UI just randomly one day, and you're like, okay, I'll relearn everything. So in terms of what else they could change, I mean, well, honestly, to be honest, I haven't really thought about like what they could do to make the whole platform a bit better for creators. I just find that whatever they decide to do with the platform, I mean, they've got to deal with so much. I mean, whenever they make a giant change to things like monetization or making sure that channels are safe and disabling comments on certain videos and that kind of thing, it's for major reasons that, I mean, they might not even go into. And that's just to be able to keep the platform going. I mean, that's the most important thing they can do, keep the platform going. So that it's not just like one day it goes the way of, was it Vimeo that shut down recently? Just like randomly. And so if they can just not do that's all I can ask for, really.
Great. I mean, what do you think they currently do well compared to what they do badly?
What they do well? Well, I think the ability to let anyone be found with their content if it's good enough and if it adds something, if it's be it educational or entertaining, the ability to be found, even if you're not the kind of person that likes to network or go through an agent or something. Like you look at Hollywood and everyone goes through someone to get somewhere in your meetings and parties and stuff to network. But on YouTube, you're dealing with robots that can help promote your stuff. And so it helps a lot of introverted people. It helps a lot of people who are in situations where they can't possibly do stuff like that. Just to be able to build up a following on their own and find other like-minded people and make connections that way. That is by far the best thing that they do. They've definitely changed countless people's lives in that regard, including mine. Things they could improve on. They're already looking at improving their communication. I think just like more clarification on certain rules and policies, right? So one thing that I was looking at recently was the reused content policy, which is a relatively new thing, I think from late last year. And the whole time it was talking about reusing content that maybe is on your own channel or whatever. It was worded in a way that was a little bit vague. And I actually had to reach out to him and be like, so what's the deal? Like, can you repost your own content? Because it doesn't say anything about like whether or not it's other people's content. They're like, if it's your content, it's fine. I'm like, that's not written on the policy. I reread and so stuff like that. If someone's asking about it and they discover stuff like that, to be able to get that out there and clarify the rules is really important, because there's so many cases of people with their own channels in niche genres and stuff that maybe they just can't get anywhere because there's like one rule in the way, or think something that's just not clarified enough. So just stuff like that, I think, would help.
What I wanted to ask was, like, talk about YouTube and the nuances of it, and how people get frustrated about, like, it's against me or it's targeting me, or why is it not promoting my content? What's your, like, simplified, what's the, like, in a nutshell, this is the simplified understanding of how YouTube actually works, so that, like, an emerging or new creator, or even, an established creator can understand, like, the best way. They won't be sitting there frustrated going, why is this not working against me? So do you have a...
Yeah, for sure. I think the number one piece of advice is to just remember that YouTube is a platform. It's basically, if you think about it, like a giant robot, right? And it has certain rules, hidden rules maybe. And there are ways to be able to figure out how you can cater what you're creating in a way that more people will be able to find it, right? So this is something that I figured out when I first started. It's just reverse engineering what's already on YouTube and then being able to adapt it to your own content, right? So, for instance, getting your name out there at the start. You can't create original content like about yourself because no one knows who you are. But if you start making content about like an IP that's already out there that people know about, that already has fans, if you create something that adds something to that and helps other people or entertains other people in that little I guess just waiting pool, then you can start to build a following from that, and then you can start to I guess just pivot towards other areas. And so I'm pretty sure PewDiePie did that really. He started with gaming, where people are already playing the games, there's already fans of the games, and then he put his personality out there to be entertaining. And now he does, I don't even know, all kinds of like weird and wonderful ideas every day. And you couldn't really do that if you were just starting out, because no one would be able to find you. But now that he's established, you can do that. And so, yeah, you have to be able to work in a way where you're contributing something that people can find. I mean, the robot can only do so much for you. I mean, you can cater your content all you like to 10 to 20 minutes or whatever the ideal one is, and using the right tags and everything. But you have to be able to know if there's people that can find that thing, and then if it's quality enough that they would continue to watch you, and you can diversify a bit more after that. YouTube's just a really complicated math equation that you have to figure out based on the examples of other stuff that's out there, and then try and do the same thing with your content.
Before we go on, let's just take a quick break here. So creator generation isn't just this podcast we've been developing an app, Fred.
We have indeed, and the app is designed to really bring together the creator community. A lot of creators tell us that they feel, quite isolated in their creating. So we thought, well, let's bring everyone together so they can have a great conversation.
Totally. And it's called
Creator Generation.
Funnily enough. And you can get that both for iPhone in the App Store and Google for Android.
So you mentioned before about, YouTube having these features that help get content discovered by the right people who share that same passion, who are interested. I guess it's an important point because a lot of people still want to start on YouTube and they find it daunting. We're like, 700,000 hours or something uploaded every day with the content. That's a lot of content going up there. And they're like, how can we compete? And we do say, like, you don't really compete against everyone out there. You compete against everyone who's making your type of content. The algorithms are designed to push the content out to the people who like that type of content. And they are becoming smarter and they're trying to create more of that intelligence. So do you think YouTube is currently a good place for new creators to start? Is there still hope for them there?
Oh, for sure. I was actually just telling my roommate the other day, because she's into cosplay and makeup and fashion, and I was just saying, I was just giving her like a 5-minute spiel. I'm like, if you do this, this, and this, you'll be like famous in 5 seconds, something like that. Just giving her some tips on how to get started, and she hasn't got a following or anything. I was just saying that that might be handy, not just for YouTube, but things like Instagram and Twitter, and just building up her own business as well. There's lots of opportunities there. So yeah, I think it's definitely it's a good place to start for sure. I'd say that the algorithm behind it is very much catered towards helping people get discovered. Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you had to start a new channel now with no leverage from any other channel or your current personality, how well do you reckon you'd do?
I'm basically doing that right now.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask is,
Yeah.
You've got this experimental new channel you just mentioned. Can you give us a bit of a walkthrough case study on what that channel is and what you're doing there to get it started and get it going?
Yeah, it's actually a channel where we do we're doing compilations of some true stories, like some animated true stories we've already done. And I figured that because I'm kind of catering it towards a new audience, so it's kind of repackaging stuff already done, adding in a little bit of new stuff. And so I figured that if you can upload at a certain schedule, and do it in a way where you're marketing with in an entirely new way, you might find a completely different subset of an audience. So yeah, I actually haven't really advertised it much at all. I've actually just had a lot of fun just putting it together. I think I did 1 or 2 community posts, but we haven't done a video advertising or anything. Just purely because I want to see who goes to the channel, and it's mainly just for data, and it's a bit of fun as well. But yeah, I think that a lot of content creators are starting to realize that there is definitely a market for longer type of videos that have quick cuts. And so standard until now has been mostly about 5 to 15 minutes, something like that. But there actually is a bit of a market for things that are a bit longer. I know that there's a thriving industry for kids animations where they go for half an hour to an hour, and parents just throw it on, and then it's they just binge watch everything. But I think that for not just kids, there's actually an audience for that too, where people want to binge watch certain series, certain things. And so but they don't want to have to rewatch the same things over and over. You have to do it in an intelligent way where they're getting new stuff pretty constantly. That's pretty much all it is. It's just it's a fun experiment. And
so what are you doing? So what are you trying to, have you got guiding principles for what you're trying to, with what you do on that channel to sort of see how it organically grows? Because people listening who are great, how does someone who's got millions and millions of subscribers but then go back to an organic zero base? What are those have you got any guiding principles or a template or a plan that you're following on that?
No, I wouldn't say a plan. It's more just the things I've learned over time. Just good rules to follow. I think the reason countdowns even did well in the first place is because that's when they switched over from viral videos to watch time. And so, YouTube have even been upfront but saying like watch time is pretty important, guys. You should probably focus on that. And so that was if you can do anything to increase your watch time, your retention, get people interacting as well. Like something we do a lot is get people to pitch questions for us to answer or pitch their own stories that they want us to turn into animations, that kind of thing. So we can involve the audience too. Have characters made for them and that kind of stuff. Is just a good way to interact with them and help build a bit of excitement when something new comes out. And so yeah, I think there are definitely little things you can do to improve your video's performance and discoverability as well. Just standard things like tags or subtitles or end cards. But I think the number one thing that people should definitely bear in mind is that you can pretty much make a successful channel out of almost anything. But the reason most people don't is because it's really easy to just like give up or pivot in a way that doesn't work, and to lose faith in what you're doing. That's definitely it's definitely really important to just keep pushing through and keep trying new things, and you'll start to pick up some data, and that's another cool thing about YouTube is that it's really open about its data, and you can start to figure out what's working and what isn't.
Can you put it like, can we eavesdrop on that conversation with your roommate a little bit? Like, what was your top advice there to your cosplay loving roommate?
Well, I think the thing about cosplay that's really cool is that every cosplay you do always has an audience built in, right? People love that character. People love the series that character is from. So it kind of markets itself, really. You can easily find a subset of the audience who are interested in learning how to make that cosplay, interested in seeing that cosplay at conventions. And I think, makeup tutorials are quite big on YouTube. It's quite easy to just pivot that from like how to blah, blah, blah into like how to make a wig for this specific cosplay. And there are a lot of people interested in that. And she's done a fashion degree, and so she knows specifically like how to make things that are like use things that are quite cheap and turn it into something that looks really good. And so I was like saying, well, you could make a tutorial about like a lot of people like they might have just no funding, and so they need tips like that from someone who's had experience. She's always like fixing things in her house, like she's been installing like tower racks and stuff, and like every time we have like an issue, like we had a cat door that our cat was not going through, she would just like bang her head against it, she'd get frightened by the noises, she just wouldn't go through it, and so we tried everything to keep this cat door open, it just wasn't happening, and so we told her about it, and 3 seconds later she comes out with blue tack, sticks up the door, and she's like, I fixed it. I'm like, you're so handy, this is crazy. And she does the same thing with cosplays. Like she's basically one of those people that if you come to her with like a cosplay issue, she can fix it within seconds. She just has an intricate knowledge on all these materials and all these how wigs work. She actually just pilfered a wig, so she cannibalized a wig to create another wig that our cat was quite interested in. She wanted to eat it, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I was just saying that there are all kinds of things you can do, not just on YouTube, but Instagram, and also Facebook and stuff. Because I mean, you could pivot to being someone who gives tips on cosplays. You could be someone who makes cosplays and then uses models to show them off, just like you would at a fashion show. There are lots of opportunities and things you can do, but I think the important thing is that you pick one, you start doing it. Because most people wouldn't. They would just be like, oh, that's a cool idea. It's easy to come up with ideas. Everyone's got ideas. But to be able to follow through with it, to invest in the equipment and make things that are intriguing is a whole nother ball game.
Just stepping back to one thing you said before. You mentioned about where creators, spend time and focus. And one thing that comes up sometimes is the metadata and the things around tags. And we have talked about the system becoming a lot smarter now, and an emphasis actually going away from things like tags, video tags, because the system is now smart enough to watch the videos and understand how they work and listen to them and understand who the audience is. And like, I think even in creator Insider, the guys from Discovery did say spend nearly all your time on titles and thumbnails rather than on video tags. But there are still people out there who still push the idea of, that SEO element and, having a set methodology for guaranteed success. What do you say about that?
Titles and thumbnails are my favorite part. This new channel is basically that. I love it. Like, it's just coming up with the intriguing titles for like stories we've already done or stories that we're working on, and coming up with a thumbnail that encapsulates that, or has something unexpected. Is by far my favorite part. The other stuff like tags and stuff, like, yeah, I think that when we started really taking off with our videos, SEO is cool and everything. Like, it helps you with discoverability. But I think that it's really more important to focus on understanding why people like your content in the first place. You make something, and you need to figure out like who is watching it and why they're interested in it. Because if you keep changing it, then you're going to lose your audience. And you got to make sure the quality of what you're making is the best it can be. And if you start to not care about what you're making, people are going to notice a drop in quality anyway.
Fair enough. So tags will be less relevant, you reckon, as it goes forward?
Well, it helps with discoverability. It helps to catalog videos for sure. But I mean, as long as you got the basic tags in there, as long as you got like certain keywords, that's just me though. I'm sure a lot of other content creators might feel differently, but
it is an interesting one because it's one thing when we talk to creators, they have quite varying opinions about it. When we talk to the experts, most of them are like, tags don't matter that much anymore, but they look at it, having talked to the Discovery team a lot and looking at how intelligent the system is becoming. But, there's two quite differing opinions, and, the creators have seen a lot of success in different ways. So it still is an interesting debate about whether to keep including lots of interesting tags or focus more on things like title and thumbnails, which is where we often say, put that effort into. So, yeah. Interesting info. Interesting to see how that evolves over time.
Put the effort in titles and thumbnails.
It's. I like to think of it like it's kind of like how Facebook redid MySpace's. How MySpace just had like just a vomit of like color and all this garbage,
right, yeah.
And then Facebook was like, no, profile picture, banner. That's all you need. And it's the same thing with YouTube. Like title, thumbnail. That's your marketing, and so that's excellent. Instead of coming up with some kind of a marketing campaign aiming ads on TV, and you're like, we should show a family enjoying the product with like a dog involved and a CGI creature. No, it's just a thumbnail and a title. It's actually quite liberating to just focus on that.
Yeah.
You guys, like, do you do anything around how you come up with thumbnails? Like, you've got a team. Is it a team thing? Is it does that just live with one person? Do you A/B test them, things like that?
Yeah, it's just me. I love doing it. It's my favorite part. I love the marketing side of things. I find it so fascinating when a video does better, probably because like the title's good or the thumbnail is just the right pick or something like that. It's actually one of the reasons that our countdown channel started taking off is because we had one video, one thumbnail that like it actually triggered people's phobia. It was the thing where you have the marks in the skin, trypophobia, I believe it's called, where you got like little like lumps and stuff. And it was just like, it was like someone's back and it was full of lumps. And so once that video started taking off, YouTube kept removing the thumbnail because like, you got to stop this. And I kept adding it back in. I'm like, no, it's actually working quite well. Eventually I did get rid of it, but is interesting. And I think even these days, having a provocative thumbnail is good. They definitely doubled down on getting rid of like, I'd say garbage videos where it's just like very clickbaity.
Yeah.
But I think still having ones that resonate with people, and I know that storytime videos have been doing really well because of that, where it's a title and the thumbnail to support it that kind of promises an animation talking about the thing. So it's gotten a lot better in that regard.
Have you seen an example where you had like what you guys believed was a pretty killer piece of content? It was great, but it just wasn't doing what you thought it was, and you've gone ahead and changed the thumbnail or a title and seen, and does that help? Have you seen anything like that?
Like flipping the thumbnail. Yeah, so we've definitely tried that, but I like to do that with new content, or at least if we remix it to create something new, we might do that. To go back to your old videos and start flipping thumbnails feels cheesy. We've definitely tried it a few times, but I've never really seen many. I've never really seen that work that well, because once you've put the video out there and it's got its initial audience, it's like your major, like the major flood of people, and after that point, it's just kind of diminishing returns.
Interesting.
I'd say doing it for new videos is more my jam rather than
And how new is new videos? Like, what's the time period you're talking about?
a week.
A week, right?
Yeah, after a week, no one, because you go back to like a video you made like 2 weeks ago, and all the comments are 2 weeks old, and there might just be some random who is posted a day ago. They're like, "What is this video?" Like they don't know. It's YouTube is about fast consuming content for sure. Things like YouTube originals are more about like evergreen content, and to an extent, YouTube is about that, but it's also about pumping out tons of stuff. Be it like a minimum of like once or twice a week is good.
It's a really good point, because you do put out quite a bit of content, and there is always that debate between evergreen versus trending. Evergreen being always relevant, trending, new and relevant. What kind of ratio do you have with your videos, and how much of your videos are found, old videos are found years afterwards?
We're definitely all evergreen. We never really go for trending topics, even with our videos that could basically be evergreen. Just because I think trending is more for the kind of Twitch audience, where it's about the creator talking about a current topic or an issue, and they can give their 2 cents on it, and people remember that. Whereas if our content is not about like one personality, it's about a group of characters, it's about stories, animations. And so creating content that people can consume anytime in the future is important to us. I think, pretty much the trending tab is just full of that kind of stuff. It's what's been happening in the news or some drama or something like that. And I think that the content that we make is something that you kind of discover and then you want to binge watch, kind of like a TV show.
Right. And do you have with your back catalog, do you see a lot of views into your back catalog of content?
Yeah, it's the only reason we can fund like 30 or so people who go in our team, is that we have that backlog of stuff, and we every time we create new content, it's just like another another way to keep things secure in that sense.
And with your 30 people, can you tell us like the breakup of your team? How does that look? Like, what are the 30 people assigned to?
Yeah, we've got like 7 voice actors who are the main characters on our channel. We've got a few writers. We've got at least 1 or 2 editors. We've got lots of artists and animators. So there are lots of artists who can't animate, but they still want to contribute. And so we created formats of videos where we can just use still images and clever editing to be able to let them contribute as well. But then we've got animators specifically for animation channel. So most of our team is composed of those guys. We've got sound designers. The sound designers we got are these guys from I think it's Germany, and they do sound for Kurzgast. And we've been working with those guys since about 2015, and they're amazing. They do whole video in about a week. It's incredible. Yeah, it's just a big old varied mix. I'm probably forgetting a whole bunch, but that's the nature of it, I guess.
And do you like working with a big team? I mean, especially, you said you started in your own bedroom and now you've got like 30 people working with you. How does that feel?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's, I guess, once you reach a certain amount, like I'd say 30 is about the most I can manage on my own.
Yeah.
And I am managing most of everything on my own. I got an operations manager to help me out. But in terms of like expansion, I don't think I could go beyond this unless we start doing something completely different, which we are doing actually. We're doing TV animations at the moment with a side team. I'd say it gets a bit out of control, and you can't give people the attention and the conversation that they deserve.
This is it's a point that I think a lot of YouTubers want. This idea of going from zero to having this great career and this big team is a big dream for a lot of creators, especially when they're starting out. The reality of that is something else. I mean, how do you manage that time now? You got to create all that content and run the channel, but you're also managing all these people and managing your opportunities. Well, how do you feel about all that?
It's a lot of responsibility. I find that, I mean, most of the managerial work I do is by necessity. I mean, if I'm managing like all of this stuff, I'll just try and handle people's. Actually, we found that we haven't really had many issues in terms of like crises or PR stuff or whatever, because we just keep things fairly low key and simple. But I mean, it's really hard to manage people when it comes to time zones, because I mean, Australia is just the worst when it comes to time zones. Everyone's just the opposite side of the world, and so like if I'm talking to someone in New Zealand, that's easy. But the US, the UK, Canada, like it's. Like I'm like, oh, let's have a meeting. I'll get up at 5 a.m. and then, but then it'll be like 2 p.m. or something. But we mostly communicate through like text, Discord. We used to use Skype a lot, but just Discord now. And so there are challenges, but I'd say it's manageable, and we seem to be doing okay. So.
And I mean, do you like what you're doing? Would you rather go back and create more creating content, or are you happy with this big team and what the future is looking like in terms of a much more established, larger structure?
Yeah, I think in terms of YouTube, we don't have any like lofty goals, but what we've been trying to work towards since forever is be able to do story animations, basically TV animations, basically cartoons. And I talked about this at VidCon, I think, a couple of times on some panels, how that's always been kind of our goal. But I guess the problem with making a big budget animation like that is, first off, it's cost prohibitive. Second off, you have to have like a completely separate team that you have to have like an art director. You have to be able to do backgrounds, layouts and stuff, more than what on YouTube, which is just you have a script, you can assign it to an animator, and it's pretty straightforward from there. But I mean, we are moving towards it now. But I found that with YouTube, you can't really make stuff like that because you have to be able to consume content so fast. There's no way to fund that just from ad revenue alone, no way. So you have to be able to make content to be able to fund that, or you have to find outside funding, or you have to work with a studio that's well established. Yeah, I mean, that's our kind of like where we're moving forward towards. I guess it's different for every content creator. The other storytime animators that were on the panel at VidCon, they said they don't even know where things are going to go in the future, which I can definitely relate to. And you never really know where the platform's going to go or what it's going to lead towards. So I think we're all still figuring that out. I mean, YouTube's new as is just becoming a thing when I was in high school, and I think we're all still figuring it out and where things are going to go. I mean, now you got e-celebrities everywhere, and that really wasn't a thing that long ago.
It sounds really simple to go from a creator in the bedroom by yourself making stuff for fun, and then all of a sudden you got 30 people working on a channel that's blown up. Like that, the way you described it earlier on sounded like 1 month you were by yourself, the next month there was 30 of you. That I don't think that's how it worked, but if it did, right on, man. But so what was that like? What like how the hell do you even go to the next step of like getting someone else on the channel and paying them like that one? What's that next step look like?
Yeah, we're talking about rocky transition periods and adapting. Yeah, that was hard because, I mean, it was just me at the start. I was doing all the scripting, all the editing. I voiced by necessity. I don't actually want to voice videos. Like, I think there are voice actors who are better at the job, but I just kind of voiced it. And people got attached to my accent. They're like, I can't figure out who you are. Are you Dutch? I'm like, sure. Why not? But then I started bringing on other voice actors, ones who had interesting, unique voices. And people just lost it. They're like, this is not Dolan. This is some other goon. How dare you? And like, I'm just sitting there like, this is what I want to do in the first place. I want to get other voice actors. I thought, they're really good at this. And every time we brought on a voice actor, they would just get hate. Yeah, right. And I was telling, like, they were just like, oh, everyone hates me. I'm like, dude, you're doing fantastic. They're crazy. Just keep going. You're doing awesome. I think now in 2019, it's okay if we bring someone new on. But I think from 2014 to 2017, people hated it. So
did you pay? Those voice actors? Did you pay them? Like, how did that start? Like, your channel started growing, so you
sure. Well, I guess we just advertised by having a job posting under our videos. It was just like, here's our website. Here's a link that is just like, we're looking for these people, so voice actors, writers. And so people would just email us saying, hey, I got this experience. And so we would negotiate a deal, and then we bring them on as a recurring thing. I try not to bring on people temporarily because I like to, if I offer someone some work, I like to be able to build a rapport with them and give them something they can rely on as well. Because it's easy to just hire someone and be like, you work for 2 months and then just go away. Shoot. But I give everyone we bring on, I try and give them the forefront, right? Because I find that with a lot of TV shows and channels, they have a lot of people working in the background as like writers and editors that don't get like any credit, or they don't get like, they don't feel important in terms of the channel. They just make stuff and that's it. Some people are okay with that, but what we do is we highlight who worked on the channel like right away. We give them a character each so that we can put them in videos. They have like voice cameos and stuff. We try and involve them as much as we can. And try and push people towards their Twitters and stuff, and be like, hey, check out this other cool stuff that we're working on. We try and push that a lot more, because I think if I was working for a channel and doing stuff like that, I think I'd appreciate that as well. So I think helping them out in that way. I mean, a lot of these guys have started doing other stuff based on just working for Planet Dolan, which I love.
Awesome.
So you talked about before the idea of wanting to do and bring in more voice actors. What is that issue like with expectation versus reality? Like sometimes, we'd want, creators want to say, I'm going to do this, it's going to be great, and you put in all this effort, and they change it up, and then it's just like everyone loses their shit. They're like, go back.
I mean, this is exactly why I make new channels, because like you want to make I mean, when you're starting out, you can experiment with anything you want. Like if you're doing a gaming channel, you can do anything in the realm of gaming, and there's really no big deal. But once you start to get established, especially for a series that people like, and you start to do other stuff, they don't like that. So if you wanted to completely change your audience, starting a new channel is an okay idea, as long as you're okay starting from scratch and committing to it for the long term. I wouldn't recommend starting too many channels, because that's just like, I mean, I've got 2 abandoned channels now that have I don't know how many subs, and that was just because it's just fun experimenting, trying new things.
I mean, well, like, we've created content and we put a lot of effort into it, and we're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And we put it up and they're like, what the hell is this? Because it wasn't like everything else people have watched, or, there's the audience wants something, they're attached. YouTube they subscribe to a lot of channels typically, and they love a lot of different things for different reasons. And when you mix that up even slightly, sometimes there can be problems. But, if you're a big channel, you do have to mix things up to some extent. And that's an interesting line. Yeah.
We definitely had videos that I've not done as well, and like ones that you think are funny that just don't land. I learned that early on. I remember watching comedy channels and I'm like, oh, I could try 1 or 2 of these, and then I did them, and everyone hated them. I'm like, all right, got it. This is good data. Not trying that again.
Well, that's right. That's what you need, right? You can't look at it and go, I'm a failure, I'm going to stop. You got to look at it and say, that's good data. I know what people like now, and I'm edging towards the right thing. Yeah. What happens though as you get bigger and you do have to adapt the content a little bit? Like, how much anger should you put up with in order to try and find that new formula for success?
Yeah, I think a lot of the channels based on a personality get away with a lot more, because people are there for that person. I mean, I find it hilarious when people like PewDiePie or Markiplier like, I took a giant risk doing this new series. I'm like, no, people are just going to watch whatever you put out. You're all good. But I think for a lot of like company-based channels like us, it's more about just finding formats of stuff that resonate, and trying new ideas and making series people can rely on to watch, to be able to binge watch or whatever it is. Because maybe they have a whole bunch of characters that are attached to, or a certain type of format that they want to see more of. It's just, about trying to figure out what you enjoy making versus what they expect versus what is feasible in terms of like producing it semi-regularly, with like how much it might cost, and it's another mass equation that sometimes drains the fun, but if you can figure it out, then it's like a whole new experience and leads to more opportunities, and I find it fun, but not everyone might find that fun.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because YouTube, it's always evolving, right? But if you think back to traditional TV, it evolves, but it evolves at a much slower pace. So people have time to adapt and build structures. Whereas YouTube, even though it's been around for like, a good amount of time now, right? 15 plus years. Getting there, getting to 15 plus years. It's still evolving so fast. And if not, it's gotten even faster and faster because it's adapting to so many different things. So like even established YouTubers, like you're talking about on this panel, they're still not sure where it's going or what to do next. And it's really, it's a crazy journey in many ways, isn't it?
Yeah. I think, MCNs were like a big thing not even that long ago. And now it's, now we're all kind of just
dirty
doing our
word.
own thing. Yeah. now we're all just kind of doing our own thing and still figuring it out. And I think, sponsorships started to become a thing not that long ago as well, because that was like hard to do. It was just you don't know where to go for it. You don't know which ones are dodgy, which ones are legit. Whereas nowadays there are systems in place to help content creators out with that. So I think we're slowly getting there. But it's technology is moving so ridiculously fast, and it was actually my brother not long ago said he's just scared that like the laws can't keep up with how fast technology is advancing. Like something that I'm really excited for in the near future is augmented reality. So you put on glasses, sunglasses, whatever, and it'll just overlay 3D graphics onto the real world. Kind of like what we saw with the HoloLens, but in a much less big thing over your face, much less VR kind of thing. And I think once that becomes a thing, I think things are going to change very, very quickly, kind of like how smartphones changed everything very, really quickly. And so, that is concerning, but I think given time, it'll be okay. But we're in this giant, scary, lava cooling on the earth to form life itself kind of period where everything's being destroyed and recreated. So, yeah. Everything will be okay, but in the meantime, we just got to panic and adapt.
Well, we'll probably ask the question. We ask a lot of our creators, like, what are your top tips for then an emerging creator or a creator on the platform?
Yeah, tenacity for sure. You just have to make stuff, right? It doesn't have to be that good. It's like learning an instrument. You just make lots of stuff and you experiment. You find what you find interesting to make. Also, to research other channels. Start to look at videos as like a reverse engineering job. Just like you just break down what it is about the video that succeeded or didn't succeed. You might have a channel that should have succeeded, but you don't know why it didn't. Or there might be a big channel and you're like, well, it's not that good. Like what could possibly have happened there? And so you have a look at all the metadata for it. Half the time you have to figure it out on your own. But if you watch enough videos and there are channels dedicated to teaching people how to use YouTube that you can learn from. I think it was Video Creators that I learned from.
Tim Schmoyer.
Yep. Yeah, I was watching Tim back in, I think it was 2011 or 2012, and I learned a lot from his channel, and he's still going today. I haven't watched his stuff in a while, but that was really handy because he could give you data on stuff you didn't realize, even if you make your own channel. And using that data, you can actually start to figure out how a channel worked. And I think Social Blade really helps. You can figure out like when a channel peaked or how a channel got discovered, and then you can start to replicate the same thing. You don't have to copy them, of course. You can take inspiration from how they got started, start to adapt their techniques into the cool thing that you want to make and that you're contributing something new to.
Fantastic.
Dolan, thanks for joining us on
Of
Creator
course.
Generation. It's been awesome.
Of course.
Thanks,
It's
mate.
fun.
Dolan, so professional. So interesting.
He's brilliant. He really knows his stuff.
Indeed. You got any questions for Dolan or for us, let us know through the socials, Insta or Twitter, or if you want to get on the Creator Generation app and ask some questions there, please do. Otherwise, we will see you next week.
Bye.
See ya.